Hello, everybody. My name is Winn Hardin, and thank you for joining us on our latest episode of Manufacturing Matters, where we talk about the technology and the trends and the events that are reshaping the global manufacturing industry. As I mentioned, my name is Winn Hardin, and I'm lucky enough to be here with my co-host Amanda Del Buono. How you doing, Amanda?
Great. Always glad to be here, Winn.
Fantastic. And then today we're also lucky enough to have a local Jacksonville, Florida native, which is, by the way, my home base. Also, author and original founder, I believe, of Iverson and Company CNC Machining up in the Chicagoland area, if I'm not mistaken. Terry can correct everything I just said that was not exactly correct there. But Terry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Winn and Amanda. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's an honor.
Our pleasure. So why don't you kick us off with a little bit about Iverson Company and then a little bit about Champion Now, which is, I think, going to be a big focus of our discussion today.
Sure. Yeah, Iverson and Company. Actually, I'm the third generation. My grandfather started back in 1931. My father had a run from probably about 58 to probably 99, probably somewhere in there. And I joined in 1980, and I just recently sold the company about a year ago, about 13 months ago, actually.
Yeah.
And so it's in its 94th year.
So now you just play golf all the time, which I know is not the case, actually.
No, I don't play golf. But thank you for the thought, though.
Well, my pleasure. I know you're staying real busy. So before we get into Champion Now, and that's going to be a big focus of what we're going to talk about today, guys. Like our overarching theme for our discussion today are the labor challenges that are facing the manufacturing industry, and how a lot of programs from different schools and universities are approaching that, and something special that Terry's been putting together in his semi-retirement. But before we get into that, Terry, tell us a little bit more about your experience in the manufacturing sector. I know it's basically a lifetime involvement, so share away in terms of where your background is in that area.
Well, I was fortunate enough to be born into the family business. I initially didn't think I was going to join it. And then I realized that I was really good in math and science, and other paths didn't seem real consistent or logical.
Right.
And so I joined the company in 1980. We did a lot with super precision turning, general precision milling. So we were stockholders as a family of Hardin as a company.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, our family owned about 10% of one of the stocks that Hardin had. And my grandfather started Hardin in 1925. So when the calendar hits January 1, we will literally be celebrating our 100th year in the industry.
Fantastic. 100 years. Not a lot of companies that can say that. And one of the few other companies that I've worked with over the years was Leone, which is now mainly BizLink, that was acquired from that. And they used to make thread for royalty. So it was always weird for me to be able to say, I've known a client who's been in the industry for 300 plus years. But you're number two in terms of longevity. So that's amazing.
Triple digits is still a good goal.
Still, I'm saying.
Yep.
So Terry, I think you have a unique perspective on this. Then, can you kind of talk to us a little bit about the labor challenges that we're seeing in manufacturing right now?
Yeah, Amanda. Ever since I got into the industry, the chant of we need more skilled people has been gradually louder, and now it's almost deafening now. But even when I started in 1980, people would tell me, Amanda, they said, well, I'll buy a CNC machine from you if you can provide an operator. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't really work that way, but nice try. So over the years, our culture, right around 83, that was the first major recession that I lived through as an adult. And right around that time, apprenticeship programs were being closed down. School programs were being, shifted aside or closed down, and somebody made the dire comment that we were going to be a service-based economy, and I shuddered when I heard that. So it's taken us a while. I mean, it's been almost a generation and a half where people have been shunned from going into manufacturing, and my chant to give young people an education or an inspiration on what's possible Started about in 1995, and gradually, ever so slowly, the needle has been moving very, very slowly and is now picking up a little bit more steam.
So, one thing we haven't even touched on, Terry, is if I'm not mistaken, during our lunch discussions a couple of times, you've authored a couple of books on the state of manufacturing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And there was kind of a unique approach, I thought, that you took when you were writing those.
Well, I started Champion Now. Champion Now is an acronym, and I'll explain why in a minute while I point that out. It's change how American manufacturing is perceived in our nation. It's the longest acronym ever. So in 2013, my daughter and I, who worked for us at the time, took a flight to Taiwan. And you probably don't know this about me, Amanda and Winn, but I'm really ADHD. Focusing is really hard for me, and I have to be constantly engaged. So school, I was an AP student, but school was really hard for me because I just couldn't pay attention. So when I'm locked in a cylinder, a metallic cylinder, 40,000 feet or 30,000 feet up in the air, I get bored in the first 5 minutes. So I started writing because I had been involved in so many advisory boards and national committees in DC and Florida, here locally in Chicago. And I thought, what good is all this involvement unless I share it with somebody?
Right.
And Harry Mosier, who is a dear friend, got me involved in talking to young people in class. And it just wasn't doing it for me. Not that it wasn't a great thing to do. It's just I could only talk to 20 young people at a time.
Right.
So after I put aside the 40,000 words that I had finished on the flight, then I picked back up the computer and I started realizing that I had a lot of really cool people that I knew in Jacksonville, in Chicago, in Wisconsin, all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Finding America's Greatest Champion. I finished it in 2018. I had a press conference at IMTS, and that's when this came out. And you'll see that the word champion is in every book, in both books. Every book remains to be seen. But what I'm really proud of on both of these is the subtitle. And this one, Building Prosperity Through Manufacturing, Mentoring, and the Awesome Responsibility of Parenting.
Right.
Mentoring's always been important to me because I was mentored as a young child and a young man. And I had a single parent. So my dad, even though I ended up working with him for 40 some odd years, 30, 40 years, I didn't live with him. I lived in Jacksonville. My dad lived in Chicago. So I think the one you're talking about that is quite novel, no pun intended, or unique, this is my second book. Now, the first book, this is for educators, industry members, students, and parents. Okay. The second book this is the parent side, and I did a 2-cover component. There's 2 front covers 180 degrees apart, and this is the student version, and then this is the parent version. So once again, discover the path to a debt-free career. Mm-hmm. Young people going into debt with student loans is just a tragedy in every sense of the word. And you know what? Even in colleges for some people, and maybe out of every 3 children, maybe 1 or 2 of them college is perfect for.
Right.
But it's not for everybody. And to even if the college is paid for whatever reason, if they don't have a link to a career path that makes sense, then you're delaying a young person's success anywhere from 3 to 7 years.
Right. Right. Another unique feature of, I know for the second book, I'm not sure on the first book, was that I think you brought a lot of prominent names in the manufacturing world to co-author some of those chapters and essays with you. Is that correct?
I did on both. The first book, I was, I kind of brought in people from all different walks of life because I really wanted to be more value add than just about manufacturing. Right. And if they just happen to stumble upon this big secret that we have, the best kept secret in careers being manufacturing careers, then that's even better. But yeah, I definitely, the first book, honestly, Greg Wasson, former CEO of Walgreens, wrote the foreword. My son married his daughter. And so he was kind of like my test case. I said, if he felt that this was a book worth writing, then it's worth writing, because he wasn't directly in any manufacturing. The second book, the first book, it was during, this was written during the Me Too movement. So I really speak up for the female gender in the workforce, or the lack of the female gender in our workforce, I should say.
Right.
And then this one I was finishing during COVID, and it was during the racial awakening, so to speak. And I thought, you know what, I didn't do a very good job speaking up for people of color. And so I made that a focus also in the second book.
Curious with you kind of talking about that, how do you see, is outreach different from maybe your perspective or Champion Now to women or people of color or these minorities that aren't as, prevalent in the industry?
Well, Amanda, our industry is a bunch of old white guys for the most part, right? And we're at the average age of probably 55. A lot of us have been doing it for a long time, and we've been very blessed, right? But there's not enough women in our industry, and now it's starting to change. And there's certain components, like you'll see in assembly, you'll see a lot of women involved in assembly facets or inspection facets. But there's not enough in management. There's not enough in women in ownership, in being lead people or programmers or setup people, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but when you get to people of color, oh my gosh, I've been in the industry for 45 years, and I can almost name on two hands the number of people of color. Well, I should say black people that I say that I've met in our industry. And then those in the Hispanic realm, so to speak, which I guess would also be included, maybe Indian descent or Hispanic. Hispanic families and employees and workers have been pretty well represented in our industry for a while. And I know my uncle has had a fair number of Hispanic workers in his machine shop, in his job shop, but when you get to the, particularly to the black ethnicity, there's hardly any, and that's wrong.
What's the barrier there, do you think? What's preventing them from diving in? Is it your first book, the perception of the industry? Is it just access to education? What are you hearing?
Well, I think it's a couple things. One, I think us manufacturers and those of us in the manufacturing world, we're so used to one type of advocacy and one type of recruitment, and some really don't even have a set recruitment other than, let's hire the guy from across the street type thing, right? And so, but it's really, they don't have, the general public as a whole, Amanda, doesn't know what manufacturing is anymore. Mm-hmm. And even back in the heyday, they knew more about it, but now in today's world, they know very little. Well, in the black community, they just don't have access to knowing. They just don't know. And then, who can mentor them? Who can teach them? And that's what I hope to change that, because, as desperate as the need is in our industry, the black community or the people of color communities, they need jobs, and they need these jobs that are good paying jobs.
Yeah, don't we all? Do you think that the racial breakdown in manufacturing is very similar to the racial participation levels of engineering at large? Or is there basically two different problem sets between just technical engineering disciplines and manufacturing, which you don't, as we've said, we don't need to have a 4 or 6 year degree necessarily to be a player in that space. But is engineering the same as manufacturing, or are they not?
No, it's different. It's different. Let's face it. I mean, if you go down the engineering route, which I went to engineering school for, I'm sad to admit, 6 years, 3 years of pre-study and 3 years of night school after I got married. But if you go down the engineering route, you better have a lot of money, or you better have access to a lot of tuition money, right?
Right.
And so I'll answer that question that, there's not, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to be stereotypical, but there's not a lot of people of color that have access to that type of capital. Right. And so going the engineering route is very, very difficult because of that. And there's exceptions to everything, obviously. When it comes to manufacturing, I think the route is much easier and much more seamless if they only knew. Because, they could go into a community college, or they can get a job in a company, and then the employer many times will pay for their education in manufacturing, whether it be, programming or stackable credentials or whatever it is. And, the one thing that, if you're on LinkedIn, and a lot of people are these days, Drew Crow, who's rapidly becoming kind of a poster child for, more people of color that should have access to our industry. He makes some comments in the book about, how he got in, and how he was able to wedge, very creatively wedge his way into the industry, into the profession. But he said, Terry, downtown St. Louis is 85% black. But if you go into a shop, unless it's a janitor or two, you're not going to see any people of color at all. Yeah. And certainly not programmers or owners or managers or programmers or any of that. Yeah. And so I give him a lot of credit, for vocalizing that, because, being able to see a role model in somebody that looks like you, there's a lot to that. For us, for me, once again, our industry is, a bunch of old white guys, right? Case in point, it didn't take me, just panning any shop where I had, a dozen or more people that I saw that, were the same ethnicity and quote unquote look like me.
I couldn't agree more on everything, on all those the planks of that platform you were just talking about. And I know that in Manufacturing Matters, we've committed doing at least quarterly shows where we highlight women's involvement, minorities' involvement. I know that some of our friends like Jake Hall and Chris Lukey have done a lot of work in that area. In particular, I think Jake Hall, as well as, of course, the manufacturing mavens and manufacturing ladies, bringing their own influencers and singing their own songs. So, at least I guess we're starting to see some incremental change in a more public environment, which I think maybe leads into the next topic that we were going to talk about, which is more on the Champion Now side. Because one of the big questions I have is, what should manufacturing do to change themselves to be more welcoming? But at the same time, with a program like Champion Now, what channels do you use to reach a more diverse population segment, a younger population segment? So that's like 4 questions all crammed into one. I'm just going to let you go with wherever you think's best, Terry.
Well, one of the things that you're alluding to, I think, Winn, is that we developed a camp, and I have to give my eldest son some credit as well, because he was involved in helping me with this. But we developed a camp that was with a tabletop CNC machine, and we make pens and we make pen cases. The pen case is on the milling CNC mill. And the pen bodies, the segments, is on a CNC lathe. Yeah. And so what we do, and let me take a step back and say that, I didn't see many people writing books about this subject matter. So I started with the first book and, of course, the second book. But when I started to talk about making a camp, I didn't see anybody making a camp that was portable or that would go down to the middle schools. Right. Particularly with the CNC machine, because it takes a lot of moving parts, pun intended. So what I did was I developed a camp where the middle schoolers, we have a morning, and let me credit IMAC, the Illinois MEP, for piloting the program in Illinois. Now I hope this to be a national program, but they've just piloted it in 2023, and then they came back for a second round in 2024. Okay. So what we do is we make the CNC machines that are about maybe 150 to 180 pounds, and we make them mobile. We put them on a scissors lift on wheels. The scissors lift goes up and down, and of course the wheels, we can wheel it along. It's 110 power. We're not using coolant and too much fuss and mess. And so what we do is we have 6 stations. We used to do this at our company when years ago. We had an article in 2009 where we did Minor Machine Shop did a write-up about what we were doing, introducing both parents, instructors, and kids to manufacturing. But we had 6 stations. Well, in the camp, we call it Camp Champ. Once again, champion, short for champion. In Camp Champ, we have 6 stations CNC lathe, CNC mill, laser engraver, assembly, inspection, and then programmable rotary. Hopefully that's 6. And then what we do is we have 24 young people, so that we only have 4 young people per station, and then we rotate every 15 minutes. And so in quantity of 4, you can keep them in check and you make sure that they're not misbehaving or getting rowdy or anything. And then we have a high school CTE student mentoring the middle schoolers.
Okay.
And then this can be conducted either at a technical college or it can be conducted at an industry member. So when you really look at everything laid out, you can get, from middle school to high school to technical college to industry. And so everybody that's involved, basically the pathway goes all the way through. The nice thing about it is one of the things we do is we laser engrave.
Now, you initially developed that at Iverson and Co. up in Chicago. Is that where you beta tested this? Okay.
Yep.
And now there are multiple installations, or primarily just in Illinois?
Primarily just in Illinois. Right now, Champion now houses, the Camp Champ. Mm-hmm. I did leave one in Florida for the time being, not too far from you, Winn. And then I have one that I'm duplicating. And what I did was I bought the manufacturing rights to the tabletop CNCs so I can make as many as I want.
Gotcha.
And so the concept is, and then I'll point out what I want to mention about the young people. But the concept is that a region or a state or association or a group, on the shirts that we make that the kids get on the back, we tag manufacturing localism. So what we want is we want the high school kids to be from the high school that the middle school kids are going to go to. That way, 2 years, 3 years hence, the middle schoolers are now the high schoolers, and they're the mentors for the next middle schoolers.
Right.
And so, it's pretty much a known entity that, people like to work and live where they grew up. And there's rare exceptions to that. But generally speaking, that's something that tells true.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we do is, every young person gets a shirt that has the school name on it and where it is, and Camp Champ, and then sponsors of Champion Now and whoever else sponsors it. And then when they go home, they have a pen that they've either assembled or watched assembled, and then we give them a box. We don't give them the wooden case because it takes an hour to machine that. So we give them a box, and then we give them a laser engraved nameplate with their name on it.
Right. So
not only do they have a nice shirt, they got a nice case that has their name on it with a pen that they were involved in making.
Yeah.
And then, when young people show up, out of 24, there's only 1 or 2 that know the word manufacturing, much less what it is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get probably close to 10, maybe 50% pretty excited about it, maybe even more. Well, here's where this comes in. So they go home and they say, Mom, Dad, this manufacturing thing is so exciting, and I had so much fun. And then Mom and Dad say, wait, what? You're looking to go into manufacturing to make money and as a career? No, you're not going to do that. No.
Right.
So
then the college discussion. Then the student.
Then the college discussion. Exactly. So then this gives the parents, and I'll mention this is endorsed by the CEO of Siemens, which I'm very honored to have received. And then also the students, they have all the inspirational stories, the data set, the careers, the salaries to augment that. So maybe out of the 10, maybe 5 of them actually, or more, actually take that path.
Right.
So everything is kind of like stackable to make a part of the big picture.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. Kind of curious about, if you've been working with any other organizations. I mean, there's, people like First Robotics who are kind of engaging with students as well. Have you been able to, create any partnerships or have any discussions with any other national organizations?
Or AMT, you're about to go at IMTS. I know you're going to have a big presence there. So
yeah, we have the people at AMT have been very, very generous in helping us. And so we had a 10 by 10 booth in 2018, a 10 by 10 booth in 2020. Of course, 2022 didn't happen. 18, 20, 22. And wait a minute, I'm sorry, 20 didn't happen. 2022 did, and we had a 10 by 10 booth. Now we have a 10 by 30 booth. So the booth is much larger. We can have more people involved. I might have 2 CNC lathes, so I can make that many more pens that we can give away.
Right.
But case in point, I did have a nice conversation with Skills USA the other day. When I was in DC, I was fortunate enough to talk to Barbara Humpton, once again, the CEO of Siemens, who was very supportive. I went to NIMS, met with Montez King of NIMS. And then there's a lot of other organizations, the Packaging Machine Association I reached out to. I have an event at the TMA, the local TMA, next Tuesday, pardon me. So it's, we're just trying to get momentum, but the goal at IMTS, Amanda, would be to either have a kit, I call these kits, that can be leased for some period of time or rented, or the kit can be co-branded and purchased. And everything's turnkey. So, for those people that really don't do a good job of advocating for our industry or for manufacturing careers, this is kind of plug and play. You've got the machines to show and tell. You got the books to inspire the parents and or the educators, industry members, or the students.
Right. That's beautiful. And for those who don't know, IMTS, I believe, is September 9th through 14th, if I'm not mistaken, up in the Chicago Land area, McCormick Place, of course. Hopefully, me and Jimmy Carroll, one of our Manufacturing Matters co-hosts, plan on being up there and running into Terry. Maybe we can do a quick live stream while we're up there, just to say hello to the audience again and see this new booth and the new experiences. Maybe show the kid a little bit more, get a little bit more social awareness for it. So that'd be fun. We can manage to arrange that.
That'd be great. I'd love it.
Absolutely. I'm curious when we talk about labor issues, and I know that I've written and talked a lot about these. We're talking about 20% open positions in like the late 20s. BLS is predicting 23% gaps in the number of welders, forklift operators, lots of different key positions in manufacturing. Do you think that? And I love the fact that we made it this far into the show, and I'm going to blow it, but we didn't even talk about COVID and the pandemic and the labor blip that we all talked about, how that impacted. But was that just a non-event really? Are we past that? I mean, as you mentioned, your efforts started long before that in the 90s,
right,
with the awareness that manufacturing was already going to have labor supply issues. Are we still getting the hangover from COVID, or are we just continuing the existing path? Did that accelerate us? Was that accelerant on the problem of manufacturing labor? What are you hearing in real time these days from your friends at Siemens and others?
Well, it's really good. I'll cite some things from Harry Mosier. There was an accelerant. COVID was an accelerant for people reshoring.
Right.
And, the reshoring initiative is Harry's baby. And, when Harry and I, met initially in the mid 90s, I thought to myself, I go, Harry, this is awesome. I mean, I can't believe it took this long for somebody, yourself, is the person to do it. And your passion is phenomenal. But who's going to make all the parts when the companies come back?
Yeah.
We already have an existing problem with the numbers in manufacturing.
Right.
So yes, there was an accelerant for sure. COVID accelerated the companies coming back to the U.S. There was a higher profound appreciation for that we need to make things in this country. And then I think as a result, there is one of the things that was in my second book I came to notice is General Motors for the first time was not requiring a 4-year degree for every position when they hired. And when one of the largest car manufacturers on the planet makes a statement like that, that's pretty profound.
Plus, we had a bunch of early retirements, during the pandemic time, right? A lot of people,
Yep.
We've already got an aging workforce, but that, a lot of that tribal knowledge is hopefully enjoying the beach somewhere or a little bit more around a golf. Although I'd be surprised if a lot of those folks didn't get sucked back in because manufacturing's just been on a tear. It seems like ever since the world woke up again. So that's that's a good thing. At least it has been for North American economies.
Sure.
And considering North America against the other major economies in the world, I'd say maybe that's something the rest of the world should pay attention to, because it's been working pretty good for us. So something to think about. But if folks want to learn more about Champion Now, is it championnow.com?
.org. Championnow. Championnow.org. One point that I'll point out, you made a really good point that I think speaks volumes about our country.
Yeah.
Is the U.S. American manufacturing sector economy it's either eighth or ninth largest economy in the world. So when anybody says, do we really do anything in terms of manufacturing in this country? That one statistic, when you're comparing an entire country's whole economy, to think that the U.S. manufacturing economy is eighth or ninth largest in the world, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of information on our website, championnow.org. You can email me at terry@championnow.org. And we have a lot of information on there about both books, about Camp Champ. I just started I hope to, at my dad's and my uncle's high school that they came out of in Chicago, to have a scholarship program, hopefully housed from that high school, which I started when my dad passed away. And then, we have 22 YouTube videos during COVID. The gentleman at Cutting Tool Engineering Magazine and I, Dennis, we filmed about 22 manufacturing educational videos that reside on our YouTube page. Fantastic.
And it sounds like you're very in the early adoption phase. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for us to spread the word, and also for people to participate. I mean, this is kind of where robotics clubs might have been, say, 15 years ago at the high school level, where you're seeing a lot of those, and at least, in more well-funded districts, I would say.
Well, I think the other thing that I'll mention, and I haven't really had the acceptance that I would like about this facet, is both the first and the second book I wrote with Manufacturing Day in mind. Okay. And a lot of people, and the camp as well. I mean, there's a lot of people that could buy a kit and then use it for their manufacturing day, but literally take it on the road to all the local middle schools and be a tremendous champion for themselves and the industry. But Manufacturing Day, a lot of I encourage people, we do have volume discounts for the books, whether it be, either book. And we also encourage that when people buy books from the Champion Now site, we can put their logo on the book. Mm-hmm. And then every book that goes through the Champion Now site, I make sure I sign, not that anyone cares, but I make sure I sign every book. So.
Well, I look forward to when I have a bad feeling that the majority of middle school students right now, if you ask them, what is manufacturing, where is it done, probably say, oh, well, Amazon does that, Right. So that's, even though I'm an Amazon addict like all the rest of us, that's still a little bit terrifying. Yep. Doesn't speak well to the next generation of where we're going. Terry, can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your day to join us today and talk about Champion Now, and can learn more again at championnow.org. Be sure to come see Terry up at the IMTS show in Chicago next month. Mm-hmm. And until that time, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to Terry directly through his website. Shoot them over to us. You can reach us through manufacturing-matters.com. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Of course, you can see all of our back episodes on whatever your favorite podcast platform is. And until next time, just remember that folks like Terry and the rest are helping all the rest of us to remember that manufacturing still does matter. So until our next episode, thank you.